This is Ectro's Parlor. Ectro's Parlor presents Zaregoto, Volume 1, Decapitation Cycle, The Blue Savant and the Nonsense User. Written by Nisioisin, translation by Greg Moore, cover art by Take, read by Ectro.
And Holly Hagman.
Prologue. Having one too many talents is even more dangerous than having one too few. Nietzsche.
Isn't there something really scary about people who knowingly, consciously use others as stepping stools?
I wonder. Actually, it's the people who unknowingly, with all the best of intentions and delusions of just cause, use other people who are way more disturbing.
But you're a good guy, right?
I was just laughed at. Thankfully, whether or not I'm a good guy has nothing to do with anything. Instead, it's like this. It's not about two different ways of thinking, it's about different ways of living. About the absolute and enormous difference between people who can get through life without even needing to walk over others, and those who aren't even worth walking over. In the end, I think that's what it's about. For instance, a painter without a style. For instance, a scholar whose studies are complete. For instance, a chef who has already tasted success. For instance, a fortune teller who has transcended too far. The women on that island were far too different. Both the host and the guests were of a hopelessly different breed, of an unstoppably different breed. Of a different breed you wouldn't think to stop. Just of a different breed. Their existence was so out of reach, so distant, that you could never even hope to muster a desire to approach. And...
In other words, this is a question of what is genius and what isn't. Now, being incompetent, it's better, really. If you can be completely oblivious, to be so oblivious as to never think for a second about one's purpose in life, to never think about the meaning of life, to never think about the value of life. Then, this world would be a paradise. Calm, peaceful, and serene. Trivial things would be major, and major things trivial, and life could be lived to its fullest.
Surely that was indeed the case. The world is harsh to the brilliant. The world is harsh to the competent. The world is harsh to the beautiful. The world is harsh to the attentive. The world is kind to the inferior. The world is kind to the incompetent. The world is kind to the soiled. The world is kind to the obtuse. But, if you figure that out, if you realize that, it's already over right then. It's a problem with no solution and no interpretation. It's over before it's begun, and by the time it's over, it's complete. I guess it's that kind of story. For instance,
essentially, people live in one of two ways. Either they live in awareness of their own worthlessness, or they live in awareness of the worthlessness of the world. 2 ways. Either you allow your value to be absorbed by the world, or you chisel away at the world's value and make it your own.
The value of the world and of your own worth. Which should take priority? The world being boring, or yourself being boring? Which is more palatable? There's bound to be some amount of ambiguity and uncertainty. Are there really any defined criteria there? Is it really just a choice between A and B? Do you have to choose?
Where does genius begin and end?
Where does truth begin, and with whom does it end? With whom does truth begin, and where does it end? You mustn't ask. I was treated to a cynical smile.
So, how about you?
Well,
How does the world look to you?
to me, after having experienced that island, to me, there next to the blue, to me, now with this person before my eyes, it wasn't worth the trouble of even thinking of an answer, because it was all just innocuous nonsense. And so, I said nothing. Instead, I looked away and thought of something else. Just how did the world look through this person's eyes? Just how did she, meanwhile, see me?